Hey everybody, this is Donovan from Springfield Music, and I want to welcome you to Mo Better Bands, which is both a podcast and a YouTube channel where we talk with instrumental music educators in Missouri and Kansas about their programs, their successes, their challenges, and so much more. If there's a topic or an educator that you'd like to hear, drop me an email at donovan@springfieldmusic.com. That's DONOVAN at springfieldmusic.com. Okay, let's get to today's guest.
But the thing that I wanted to talk about right now was about recruitment. And for many of our schools, and likely for anyone who might be listening to this later, we all went to spring break last year and never came back. And we were not able to recruit, and we weren't able to help you all recruit. And we saw that in the rental numbers, and the enrollment numbers for band this year was just way, way, way down. And now, fortunately, of course, everybody's got a better time to put together a strategy for recruitment, but things are still kind of different. So I thought we might kind of just spend our time today talking about recruitment, and maybe you could share a little bit about it. And before you get into how you're doing right now, tell me a little bit about how you've handled recruitment in the past. So pre-COVID, what kind of things were you doing traditionally to recruit kids for the band? Because David, you've always been kind of a kid magnet. Like back to your Puxico days, like you just had that band room filled with kids wall to wall and stuff like that. So what are some of the things that you do?
Well, always be seen. Fear of the unknown is like, big for kids, and just be seen constantly. Like, hey, it's me again, Mr. B. I'm all over the place. Being approachable, relatable, try to be cool or whatever. Really knowing the timeline from counselors is kind of the big deal. Like, because if they already signed for classes, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So knowing when they're doing that and what stage they're in, and being a part of the sign up process is pretty key. So like always in the past, we get all the kids together in one room, which you can't do anymore, obviously, but we would bring in high schoolers from all the instruments and play for them, and question and answer, and just say, hey, this is a flute, check it out, this kid is way better than me at flute, she's gonna jam out, and
so you would often use like high school kids to demo the instruments for the younger kids?
Oh,
Is that
absolutely.
what you're saying?
Yeah. And then another one I like to always do is, I've done it every year, I think, except for last year, but bring the entire fifth grade into our little performing area and have the sixth grade band play and say, guess what? Just a year ago, these kids were sitting in your chair and had no idea what was going on. And then, the first couple of days, they couldn't even pick the horn up, and they dropped it and couldn't hold it, and it broke. And look at them now, a year later, at the end of the year, and now they're jamming out. And I think that's always super powerful. I mean, you could bring in a high school kid, but a high school kid to a fifth grader is like a grown man, like
Right.
they're like, of course he can do it, So that's one thing I started doing. I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago. I just started bringing in the beginners at the end of the year.
All right. Okay. So I love one of the things that first thing you said. I loved everything you said, but the first thing you said is something that I noticed that really successful recruiters do, and that's like be seen by the elementary kids. Like they know who you are. They're seeing you around. They're not just seeing you on the day that you're coming to ask them to sign up for band or whatever. Like they're seeing you all throughout the year. You're finding every opportunity you can to be in front of those kids where they know who you are, and that you make band look like it's fun. And I think those elementary students look up to older students, and I love the idea of having the high school kids come in and show the instruments off. It's also a great way to show how much respect you have for your high school kids, that you trust them to come in and help you with the recruiting. And like what a treat that would be to come in and do that. I mean, I'm sure your high school kids are honored to do it, but an elementary kid, a kid who's in fifth grade, is going to look to a high school kid, and they're going to look up to that person, and
and we like, I try to bring in like, the group I brought in the high schoolers 2 years ago. I said, hey, high schoolers, how many of you guys are involved in sports? And, all of them raise their hand. I'm like, oh yeah, this kid's captain of the cheerleaders. And this kid, how many of you guys have jobs? And just to show, because oftentimes kids in fifth grade, they think that their life has to be streamlined. Like, my identity is football player. But
Right.
like, no, that's not true. Look how many things that all these people do. They're all involved in everything. And again, we're not a small school here, but we're a medium-sized school, I guess. And so even at this size of school, the kid who's involved in things is involved in everything. And
Yeah.
explaining that to the fifth grade, I think does help. Like, you don't have to only this. You don't have to only basket weave. You can do other things.
Right.
That's a big part of it, I think. So.
Yeah. Well, that's really great. And then when in the past, when you'd have like the ensembles come in and perform for them, what kind of music would you have those groups play? Like, which groups would play and what would they play?
Again, normally I try to do the beginners. All right. So whatever they're playing for their spring concert, so I always have a reward trip at the end of the year for each group. And I try to tie that to a performance. So like, for example, the sixth grade at the beginning of the day, first thing in the morning, you bring in all the fifth graders, you play this goes into retention as well a little bit, but we play our little concert for the fifth grade. I have each kid stand up and play a different instrument to show them. And then we just play our concert material. And then the rest of the day, we just go have fun. I say, hey, it's a trip day. So, man, we go bowling or to see a movie or there's what are the bouncy places called where you have the trampolines. Kids love those. Anyway, so that's part of our reward day. And I try to make that like, if you attended all the concerts in the year, you could go to the reward day or, tie it to benchmark somehow. But normally it's every kid anyway. If you start talking up the importance of concerts early, then they show up. But so yeah, those kids, and then high school kids, we play the contest music normally. We're not doing contests this year, so that's not going to happen. Actually, this year we're doing marching band right now. We just flipped our year around because it wasn't safe or kosher in the fall, so we're doing it now. And so we're going to bring the entire elementary out to the football field, which you can do because they're outdoors. We can spread them out. We're going to play our marching show I think that's really going to be good. So
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So excited about that. But, and plus, not a lot of contests going on right now. So it gives the high schoolers more stuff to,
something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such an important part of it to think about. And when you think about trying to get kids interested in band, I think certainly getting them hooked is kind of meeting them where they're at. And, if you can play music that to them is more accessible, than maybe some of the other stuff that might be something that excites them, and probably not a bad idea to try to incorporate that into some of your repertoire anyway. I was having a conversation with someone about this a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, man, like, I feel like band's so tough because it's so many of the programs just stay into like traditional literature or even very advanced literature, but it's not relatable to anything that students listen to today. And on the one hand, we certainly want to kind of broaden their horizons of what they listen to, of course. But it helps, especially when we're trying to get them hooked, to kind of pick them up where they're at. Like, hey, you're listening to pop music and you're listening to all this stuff. You're listening to these snippets of songs that are really popular on TikTok. Like, how hard would it be to learn a 15 or 30-second snippet off of, something that's popular on TikTok and like show that for them? Because the kids would be like, oh, wow, like I know that song. I'm going to learn like to play an instrument and I could do those kinds of things. Like, yeah, I totally want to do that.
Right.
So,
yeah, we're planning to do the marching show, which again, marching shows nowadays are so aleatoric, and to kids, I'm not sure how that's going to play. But then we're just going to park and bar show tunes.
Yeah, they're going to love that.
Yeah,
your stand tunes and stuff like that.
Ooga chugga, ooga. They're going to be like,
yeah.
So
they're going to think that's the coolest thing. Yeah, they're going to think that's the coolest thing. You said something else, which is really interesting too, which is kind of important to realize is, we're talking about recruitment, but you're right. Recruitment and retention are really intertwined together because these techniques that you're using to recruit, a lot of this, you're using your older students, and using your older students as recruiters just creates that connection even stronger with the program, helps those kids to stay in it. Like, those things are really interconnected for sure.
Man, you gotta like give them ownership of the program. Like I tell the seniors all the time here, like, this is your legacy. If you look back 10 years from now and you say, oh man, the high school program I was a part of or whatever is dilapidated, like that's partially on you as well. Like, help me recruit and retain kids because it's super important. This is where you're from, and you're going to look back on this, and you want to be proud of where it's at now. Yeah, you're right. Like involving them in it is like giving them stock in your company. Like, hey, sixth graders, you guys, this is super important to get these fifth graders on board. And I always say like, hey, seventh grade, eighth grade band, like how many of your siblings or your cousins or whatever are in the fifth grade this year? You need to talk to them for me. Like involved in the process and trying to explain. It's super important, especially the first year, to start with a big number, just because of attrition and moving, and you never know. But I don't know what the national average is on retention, but I always feel like we're above the curve on that. But just again, giving them ownership, and I was going to say the number one thing I always tell, just the other day, are we already transitioning to what I'm doing this year?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, fine. I don't know what the order is. Okay. So
I don't either. So it's okay.
Me and the choir director, we went over to the elementary. We went, and you can't get them all together, right now. So we went to every single fifth grade room, and we gave the same pitch, basically, like, "What up? I'm Mr. B. Cool. It's nice to meet you guys." And just, again, it was approachable. Tried to tell them some of the benefits of band or whatever, and also choir. And then, but really, my chief argument every time is like, why not? Just do it. What do you got to lose? Like, give me 1 year, and if you hate it, I will totally support you in whatever you choose to do next in your life, and I will wish you the best. But if you don't start now, it's like if you try to start a year later, it's like all of your friends are speaking a different language than you, and you're trying to walk in and just have a conversation. It just doesn't work. You got to do it right now as a sixth grader. If you can get them in the room, again, like recruitment is sales. I mean, I'm trying to sell them a product, and it's band. So I have to be passionate about it. Tell you why you need it. It's you're selling a product. And then you're hoping a lot of them continue to buy that product. As the years go. But that's always my biggest argument. Why not? And money is a why sometimes. And we tell them, look, if money is the thing, privately tell us or whatever, and we will figure something out for you.
Sure.
And that's, especially in a poor district like we're in, I mean, that is an issue sometimes, but we've got stuff laying around that we keep working and whatnot. And so I don't know. The why not argument is my biggest argument.
Well, you nailed it too when you mentioned that it's sales. You're selling here, and what you're selling is band and being involved in music. And for most of our districts, most of the folks who are listening to this, if a student doesn't sign up for beginning band when it's offered, which is generally sixth grade in most of the area, they can't do it again. And so they have their one shot to do this, to get involved in it. And they really have to get to make that decision then. And there's always a way to make it happen. I grew up in a really poor home, and we rented our first cornet, and then it got repossessed because my mom couldn't make the payment, single parent household and stuff. And, she went to a pawn shop and found something, and it wasn't ideal, but like I loved it because I had friends in it, and band was the only thing I was actually really good at in school. And so I really enjoyed it. But thinking about it from that sales mentality, there's a couple things I think of that helps with that. One of the things, of course, you're doing is you're showing the product, by showing the older kids, whether it's singly coming in and just playing something for them, or showing the band, like you're demonstrating it, which is a very, very common sales technique that we've all experienced as consumers. And you're also sort of at the same time there's a phrase in sales called samples sell. And it's just that idea of like, hey, have you ever tried one of these? Like, it's a small sample size, and try it. And if you like it, you can buy it, or you walk through the aisles at Costco, and they're back in the days when they give you toothpicks with food on it, and you try it. I like that. And, you're going to buy it. Anything you can do that lets the kid kind of sample that. That's honestly half the reason why we used to do play testing the way that we did it before all the pandemic, with like mouthpiece buzzing and all the other stuff, was just to try to in some way kind of get like an instrument in the kids' hands and get them excited about it, so they could touch it, feel it, and sample it we could probably get them really excited about it. So in this COVID era now, how are you guys handling play testing? Or have you done any kind of play testing in the past?
We don't normally do it. And again, you ask 10 band directors to give you 11 different answers in this one, I'm sure. But we don't have the time or resources to do it. It's, I'm a horn player by trade. I don't ever play the horn anymore because here I'm the percussion and woodwind teacher. But anyway, I think it's the Art of the French Horn Playing book. It just shows the amateurs of, 30 professional horn players, and they're all over the place, like terrible. And so I always think, like, if the kid is dedicated and in it, they'll succeed. Okay. And we always have a thing, like, after the first semester or the first year, if that's not working for you, try a different horn. We'll meet with you after school and switch you. So eventually things fall out. We normally don't do play testing. If we had, like, I feel like if we had more time and more resources and a little more opportunity to get over there, we probably would do a lot more of it. I do get recommendations from the 5th grade teacher on kids who maybe have piano lessons or something like that for me to, like, push them into percussion. But after that, really, you can sometimes look at a kid and be like, okay, well, you don't want to play the flute or whatever, but most of the time,
right.
It's just, we kind of let them choose. This time, again, normally I would do this with high school kids, but this time I'm just going to bring one of every horn on a backpack or something. I don't know. I'm going to say, hey guys, this is the trumpet. Here's what it looks like. I don't know if they'll let me play it over there this time, but I can definitely show them the stuff and how it works. And
yeah, that's another idea. Like, if you can't perform for them, then there's all kinds of recruitment videos out there to help with that. Both the Army and the Navy band both did a really great series. I think it was the Navy band who did it instrument by instrument, and they'd play little short excerpts, including, like, video game themes and pop music and stuff like that. And so if you can't do a live demonstration for them, showing them something else, I think, is really useful. Yeah. The playtesting thing's interesting. So we've obviously, we've have a good process for how we've helped that over the years. And I've always been a little of two minds about it. On the one hand, I felt like all we were really doing was number one, recruiting. Like, we were mainly trying to get kids to be excited about band. But the other thing that we were doing was just trying to see what instrument they may have quick aptitude for. Because I really do think most kids don't care what they're playing. They want to play whatever their friends are playing. They care more about that usually than literally anything else. And and again, married to a band director, but I'm not a band director, but I see a lot of band directors, talk to a lot of them. And I was a kid at one point, and still act like one today, most days. And, there were several instruments that I would have played in band. Like, I didn't have my heart set on the trumpet. It wasn't the trumpet or nothing. Like, I just picked it because it looked kind of fun and it was shiny and stuff. Well, I think most kids want to play something that they are going to be good at. I think that's the key.
Agree. Well, and we do, like, a little chart, like, pick your first, second, and third choice of instrument. And if they have, one of the things I put on there too is, do you own an heirloom instrument that you'd like to play? If so, let me look at it and I'll give you that choice since you already own it, right? So that's something I put on there. Really, I try to get every kid the first thing they want to play. Of course, I explained we can't have a band of 100 percussionists and 20 flutes or whatever. It doesn't work that way. But generally speaking, we get most kids their first choice. And if that doesn't work out, we'll switch them. But and what's great about you guys too, you allow us to transfer horns and that kind of thing. But you're right. I mean, it's why do you think adults don't learn to play instruments? Is because as soon as they try it and they decide that they suck at it, they don't have the wherewithal to keep doing it. And that's the difference between a 6th grader, and so if they were immediately successful at, or more successful, I think, they probably are more apt to stay in. But this is why I don't start French horn players, because none of them are going to be good when they first start, and the retention rate is terrible. So it's better to find a kid that you can switch over. Over the years, I did a lot of, like, data, like, how many kids started what instrument, how many kids did I keep to the next year, and every year the French horn, and I'm a French horn player, every year the French horns were the least retention. I'm thinking, like, what am I doing wrong? So I just stopped starting them. But I can't win that
you
one.
Can't lose them if you don't start them.
Right.
Well, you're right. That is definitely a challenge. I think sometimes people think that, like, well, gosh, it would have been a real shame if Yo-Yo Ma had never picked the cello. Like, probably a guy like that would have been an amazing musician no matter what he played.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
listened to Bobby Shoot on a podcast this week, actually, and he was talking about how he picked the trumpet just because his stepdad had a trumpet in the closet. Like, that was it. And if his stepdad would have had a clarinet, he would have played the clarinet. And Bobby would have probably been a great world-class musician either way. Like, I think the people whose minds kind of gravitate to music and get the language of it, they're going to be successful regardless of the instrument. And we're just what we're doing by doing play testing or any kind of pre-evaluation is trying to find some way to match up a kid with an instrument that they're going to have quick and easy success, because that's almost always the thing they want. You'll probably have some amount of kids, 10-20% maybe, whatever, that's like, no, I've always wanted to play the trumpet, or I've always wanted to play the clarinet or the saxophone or whatever. But most of them are pretty flexible. Have you seen we have sent out in our director email newsletter this webinar about using students' facial characteristics to help determine an algorithm so that you know which instrument they may have the most success on. Have you had a chance to watch that or see that?
I didn't see that one, but I've heard that tons of time in the past. Like, the one that I always make fun of is like, the kids with the nicest handwriting are going to be the best flute players.
Oh, yeah, I think that's kind of dumb. Yeah, I hate any of the stuff that goes off of personality. Sure. And that's one of the few things that when I hear directors talk about that, I'm like, please don't do that. Like, that's how that whole mentality is how you get into, like, well, girls play flutes, boys play the trumpet and whatever. Like, that kind of stuff is just silly. And people say, well, if they've got a really strong personality and a big ego, then they should play the trumpet. Like, that's not true. Like, no. I've been in trumpet sections with 20 and 30 trumpet players, and they're all different egos and attitudes. There are people that are extremely humble and shy, and there's people that are arrogant and outgoing. But right. I've met flute players that are like that too. I've met drummers. Every drummer's like that almost. Like, it just, to try to do it by personality is silly. Right. I mean, but this is different. This one, what she's actually doing is she's doing a couple things that are really interesting. She's evaluating, like, you can't see it because of my mustache and beard, but she evaluates their lip size, and she basically has a 3 rating. So there's basically a small, medium, large. She assigns it a number, and then the shape of their face, and then I think maybe it's like their overbite. And she has this thing, like, you sign this number here, you sign this number here, you sign this number here. And then based on what those results are, here's the instruments they would likely be good at. And she's done this for several years, like years and years and years, and has kind of like got it into a situation where she feels like it's pretty accurate. And I honestly think for most directors, I think it probably would be accurate. And and she even says it's not 100%. There are times where, she thinks, hey, I think this kid's going to be great on the trumpet, and they put him on the trumpet and nothing really ever happens, and they switch him over to clarinet or baritone or whatever, and boom, all of a sudden, the light pops on. But she's had a lot more success with it. And there's a few things in there, like, because I get into pedagogy on certain things, I kind of think, like, well, that's not exactly like the lip size doesn't really matter a whole lot for trumpet. Like, there's been a lot of amazing professional players that have very large and full lips. But then I start to think, well, yeah, but how many band directors know how to teach kids like that? Like, probably not so many, right? I mean, like, especially if you're not a trumpet player, do you know how to teach that they have to roll that in, but in front of the teeth, and like the trick of how they do that to make it work? Well, you may not know that. And so you may not teach it. So it may be better if you don't have trumpet players like that you move those kids over to a larger mouthpiece instrument, so that you have better success teaching them. Because there's no way as a band director you're going to be an expert in pedagogy on all of the instruments that you
so they expect you to be, but yes.
I know, you just can't. Like, you just can't. You spend your lifetime trying to do that, and You just can't. So,
Well, look,
well, I think that's
all
something that's really
for-
interesting.
I'm all for like data-based, I mean, that makes sense. And, that's maybe something, it'd be kind of fun, like a game of Guess Who, like, all right, look at this kid's picture. Does your kid have a 3 lips and a angular face? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. It sounds like it might, I mean, it's definitely better than what we're doing, which is nothing, but,
Yeah.
and again, what we normally do is, since there's 2 of us, if I didn't click with the kid and give them what they needed the first year, I'll switch them to Jerry's class, and they'll switch horns, and to see if maybe Jerry
Yes.
and the kid will have a different relationship and click. I don't know. So sometimes it works.
I love that idea. There's no shame in that. Like sometimes you think a kid should play something or they pick something, it's not really working out. Yeah, man. Like switch instruments, switch teachers if you need to. Like what's important is to keep the kids in band. It's,
Sure.
that's the thing we're here
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's some students that just will click better with other teachers, and certainly there's some kids that are going to grasp other instruments more easily than others, without a doubt.
Just the concepts. I mean, the way I teach and the way Jerry teach are completely different. I mean, we're covering the same concepts. We try to keep it in line, but his demeanor and things are different than mine, and so that might attract other people that I didn't quite do it for. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a bonus that we have. Again, most of my career, the first 12 years I was a lone wolf, so I didn't have these type of things. So I'm so glad to have him as a partner, and then we can talk these things over, or trade kids or whatever. Like I'll trade you Guadalupe for a player to be named later. I don't know. So it works, but yeah, I like your idea of the thing. I'll look that up. So
yeah, it's like the band draft. I'll send you the link on it, and okay. I think there's definitely it's an idea that has merit. And when I first started watching it, I wasn't quite so sure, but then I watched it and then rewatched parts of it, and I thought, and then I shared it to a few other people, like, what do you all think about this? And including Linda, and all of them were like, I think it's interesting. It's certainly worth trying. The other thing that's great about it is you could do it with every kid, and her process takes like 2 to 3 minutes a kid. So you can kind of like get through it really fast, and you don't have to actually like touch them or anything. And they're not like spitting all over you like when we do play testing. So that might just be better. I don't know. It's definitely something we want to encourage people to try, and we want to see how it works, because we still want to get in front of as many kids as we can to get them in band. And we want to try to make sure kids are on an instrument that they kind of have the natural aptitude to be successful with. Sure. But we want to be able to do that as quickly and as safely as possible. And I think it's an idea that has merit. So I'll make sure that I link it on this podcast and then also send that to you as well. So
yeah, so like we talked about earlier about players playing different instruments. Like when I was in the 6th grade at Cape Central and Cape Girardeau, they said, what are your top 3 choices of instruments? And I chose violin, the trumpet, and the percussion. Well, guess what? I ended up playing trumpet, and that changed the course of my life. I sometimes wonder, like, how much power do I wield in like choosing a person's entire life, which is another thing. I go back. So again, I told the 5th grade this past week, and I said, they're about to give you a piece of paper that's going to change the course of your life. And I'm like, you're too young to understand the gravity of the situation, but it's insane. It's insane what they're asking you to do at this young of an age, to like, yo, I'm going to pick out my own classes. Like, that seems crazy to me, like, yeah, I almost feel like we should pick them for them. But in some schools they have a, required band or required courses or whatever. But yeah, we just hand it out and be like, hey kid, put down what you want. I'm like, oh man, that's a huge life decision.
Here's all this food. Just pick whatever you want to eat.
Right. Yeah.
There's junk food. There's healthy food. Pick whatever you like. Oh my gosh. Well, that's really cool. All right. So I think that's going to be a conversation that's going to really help people. And like I said, part of wanting to do this, I know we have a lot of directors that are thinking about what to do, and kind of hearing what other folks are doing hopefully will inspire them. And if nothing else, remind them like, man, I need to get on the ball. And there may be some younger folks that didn't think about like, oh shoot, I should get with the counselors. first and kind of figure out like what the process is, how kids are signing up for class, when they're signing up for class.
Look, our kids are already doing it.
I know.
Our 8th grade has already signed up for high school band. They're starting to work on the 7th grade. I'm like, that's why we've just been hitting it hard every day. Like, hey guys, look, it's a crap year. Let's be real, but don't judge the future based on this one terrible situation. I'm like, it could be worse. We could have been virtual all year, not even playing instruments.
Yeah.
But we're super lucky. I know we didn't get to do any of the fun trips we do or half the performances or any of the fun stuff, but stick with me and I promise it'll pay off. I mean, that's a conversation I've had 100 times in the last couple of weeks because again, we're on block now for this year, 90-minute junior high classes, which
God help
real,
us.
Take some of the fun out of it. Okay. For everyone. And so, like today I didn't even get a pee break. I got to pee right after the end of school because I've got 90 and 90 minutes, and no playing period on this day. So it's rough, but I'm trying to keep it fresh, keep it fun, but it's challenging especially with 90 minutes. And I'm just trying to focus on retention right now. So every single day I'm saying the same, like a motivational speech, if you will, like keep buying my product. You need this, it's tough, man. But I feel like we're making, I feel like things are going to be okay. But still in the back of my mind, I'm just real worried about it. I'm worried about everything nowadays, but and so I'm just trying to stay ahead of the counselors and their curve that they have to follow. So we're just staying ahead of them. That's why next week I think we're going to go down there and do the instrument choice thing. Like, all right, here's the instruments or whatever. Or maybe if you give me that link and I have time to look at it, like, let me see your face, So yeah, turn in your 3 choices and a picture of yourself from recent days.
Picture of yourself with a big toothy smile.
Right.
Let me see your teeth. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so that's what we're doing, and the performance of the high school band for the kids is going to be after they already signed up for classes. So, we're hoping that either A, solidifies some people, or B, they say, well, shit, I wonder if I can still change that. And if they can, and I think they will let them go back and change them. But
you'll pick up a few more, I think.
Yeah.
And it's so important for directors to, like, we've got to have a strong year this year in recruiting. Otherwise, we're going to have the repercussions of this through our programs really for the next 6 years, right? Because last year was so soft, and then the education they've been getting for many of them just hasn't been that good for band, because they just haven't been in there to play every day and stuff, that it's going to be probably a soft class. And we need to go hard for the next couple of years to kind of boost the numbers. So when we get into high school, we got an appropriate sized ensemble.
Right. It's like I say, it's echoes. You're going to see the echoes of this decision, or like a small 8th grade band, you're going to see the echoes for 4 years. Small 6th grade band, you're going to see the echoes of that for 7 full years. I told Jerry today, we may not fully recover from this whole ordeal for 7 years, and then I'm about to retire at that point. So, it is what it is. But we just got to make sure they got ownership, man, and the kids are helping out with the recruiting and all that. But again, I think we're in a good spot. But keep me from being worried about it.
Well, and that was something Charlie Mangini shared in that in the town hall that we were a part of, and he was just like, directors just need to make a decision, and a lot of them are kind of like wondering what to do, but make a decision and know, like, you've got to go all out on recruiting right now, or otherwise this is going to hurt your program for years and years to come. And we can turn it around. We may not be able to turn it around overnight, but we can make a pretty significant dent in it if we get started now. And so I appreciate your willingness to almost immediately jump on to do this and share this idea. And I think if we can get our educators to share some of their best practices, things that we're doing with each other, we'll hear some ideas and we'll share in some successes, and hopefully also share some struggles so that we can all kind of learn and contribute and help each other. But man, just the stuff that I think the biggest things you said, I think that I really hope people get is be in front of those elementary kids as often as you can. You're always recruiting. if anyone's ever seen the Glenn Ross movie with Alec Baldwin, famous movie from the 90s, and it's the line, if you've ever heard the phrase "always be closing," that's where it comes from. Like, you are always recruiting for band. It's never I'm recruiting today. No, you're always recruiting. When you're walking down the halls, you're recruiting, like always recruiting. So I love that you said that. And then also mentioning that, like, the reality is you're a salesperson. And you're selling bands. So you need to think about that like a salesperson, and think like, how can I better sell my product? How can I better represent my product so that more kids can choose to be in it? Because, what we're selling is so beneficial to them. Like, band has just changed my life. It's changed your life. Like, couldn't imagine my life without it.
Right. But it's hard for a fifth grader to grasp that concept.
They have no idea. They have no idea. They have no idea the cool thing they're getting ready to be a part of.
Right. So you just got to tell them. I could tell them, and I do. Hey, college money and this and that, but let's be honest.
They don't care about that.
They want to hear about the pizza you give them, and the bowling, and the trips, and their buddies. It's a community. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they want to hear about.
They do, and I think that's one of the reasons why I think, like, the relevant music portion of it's so important. When I was in middle school, a lot of people might find this hard to believe, but I was like incredibly shy as a kid. I moved around a bunch, and I always kind of felt inadequate. And like I said, I've always been the fat kid. I've always, like, my single parent home, so I never had the right clothes, the right shoes, never knew what the right clothes or shoes were. And if I did, they probably wouldn't fit me. And, like, I just was always this awkward kid. But when I started playing the musical instrument, playing the trumpet, like, I enjoyed that and kind of had a bit of an aptitude for it, apparently. But almost right away, I would get these, like, books of, like, the pop hits of 1987 or whatever. And I would, like, learn just the hook from those things, and then I would kind of play it when everyone's getting their instrument together and playing a band, and the other kids would be like, "Whoa, what is that? That's really cool."
Yep.
And it gave me, like, that first sense of somebody envied something about me. And I think when young kids can hear someone else to play, like, "Oh, that's that song from TikTok," or "That's the song, that's this song, that's whatever," like, they think that's cool. I'd love to be able to do that. And that's where it's at. Most of them don't have a sophisticated enough musical palette to appreciate marches or modern music, or even our traditional band literature. Like, that kind of goes over their head. That's sure. Brussels sprouts and
you bust out some John Mackey that's, like, crazy and fast. The kids do love that.
Yeah. They like rhythm, and they like things that are simpler for them to understand.
Right. Yeah. And I always play, when I do my recruiting stuff, I'm always like, "Hey, this is the clarinet. What do I play? Peppa Pig." Because they're like, "Oh yeah." They know what that is. I try to play something that they might recognize on the horn when I'm playing each instrument. But I don't show them anything for percussion because the percussion, A, is too much to bring around. B, everyone already wants to do it. And so that one I kind of downplay a little bit. Like, percussion is fun, but you got to really be a great rhythm reader and be able to multitask, and you got to be able to be trusted in the back of the room with weapons. And so I try to make it like I try to make it sound like the most responsible kids need to do that, and because oftentimes it's not. It's kids that can't stand still, and they're poking their neighbor in the eyeball and stuff. So
it's funny that you say that, because several years ago I had the idea of, like, what if we didn't start percussion?
Sure.
Now, some of our districts have, like, a percussion specialist and stuff like that. Like, that's going to go over like a turd in a punch bowl. I totally get that. But for a lot of districts that don't have a percussion specialist on staff, honestly, just teaching flute, clarinet, trumpet, and trombone, or keeping it simple, every way that way is they're all learning scale and pitch and rhythm. They're all doing it together. And then you can take your students that have now had this experience and can demonstrate the best proclivity for rhythm and those kinds of things. And then the next year they can switch over to percussion, and you know how many you need. And I always thought that was a neat idea. And I'd run it by a few other directors. And I think because it was so antithetical to what they were accustomed to, it was hard to realize. But then in this webinar that we've been talking about the facial characteristics, that's exactly what this lady does. she starts them the next year. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think that's such a,
actually,
again,
Gary and I had that,
I don't know, I may be wrong, but.
Right. No, we had that same exact conversation actually about a month ago. Like, what if it's literally exactly what you said? Because we already do limited instrumentation, but we also do percussion. And we had considered it, but what it came down to was a scheduling issue because the 7th grade band, then we would need them 2 different hours because I need to be doing the woodwinds and him doing the brass. But then how would you work on the tunes together if the percussion was a different hour? You know what I'm saying? Like, so if we had a 3rd director, that might be a thing to do. I even thought about having the 7th and 8th grade percussionists in their own course, and then them playing the music for both bands. Like, I don't know. We were throwing a lot of ideas around.
Oh yeah.
And then I could work on more advanced percussion literature. Like, I don't know. But then I was thinking, like, first of all, my kids dominated the all district band percussion, like middle school. Like, we just dominated it. We had 3 of the 4 snares, the timpani player, and and I think that's because at the beginning, man, I hit them hard on the percussion stuff. And by the 7th grade, they're already playing at the level of the high school kids I've got here at the school because I didn't start them.
Right.
So a lot of it, I think the technique stuff, I feel like they need to start early. But what you're saying is an awesome idea, and I want to try it eventually. But
I want you to as well, because I think you just outlined why it makes sense. You know, if by 7th grade they're already playing at a high school level for some, like, that just makes me think, like, man, you know, couldn't we delay that? You know, wouldn't they be better off? And and I think because, like, they're, you know, you're not getting like fresh kids that are doing percussion in 7th grade. No, these are band kids that have been in band for a year, and now you're asking for volunteers and having a testing program for those to pick how many you need, and you're only doing that. I just feel like they could probably get up to speed PDQ, you know, and you could do something where either they meet before school, or you could do something where they have to come in maybe like in the summer for a special class or something to, like, kind of get it. And that's part of the, hey, you want to play percussion? You have to come to this special thing, and we do 2 weeks, and it's this and whatever. I don't know. I think there's some idea to it that could be cool, but at least that way they understand pitch and all the other things that are important for them. But I don't know if anyone out there is listening to this and is doing that, reach out and let me know, because I want to hear more about it.